Greetings, Sammy citizens. Bike here. PAX East 2024. Good lord, as I'm recording this, the post-PAX blues are still hitting me like a truck because this was probably the best PAX I've ever gone to. It was absolutely incredible. Because this video is probably going to be a little lengthy, I'm not going to, fluff it up with the intro and all that. I recorded a variety of clips and took some pictures, so there's just a lot that happened here. So we're just gonna get right into it. So basically, I'm from Massachusetts, so I took the public transport into Boston, and well, let's just say my adventure on Thursday started off with a little extra walking than I anticipated. We made it. I walked like in the wrong direction for like a quarter of a mile, and like I'm not used to walking this much. I did when I was a student on campus. I very much underestimated walking in the city, but we're here. Yippee. The first thing I did when I got to PAX was see MatPat's panel.
PAX attendees, please welcome to the stage, MatPat.
Hey. Awesome. Hey, Roxy. Good to see you. Hey. Hello, PAX. Welcome to my story time.
And, being able to see that man on stage in person was absolutely wild. And my seat wasn't even that bad either, because I showed up about an hour and a half early to the panel. So I was pretty close to, like, the front of the line for the main theater. And it was just a great experience just listening to him talk, listening to him reference the video about Luigi's penis, which was apparently the sequel to the boob episode. That is a wild sentence, but I'm very glad that I got in line when I did to see MatPat. I sadly did not run into him at PAX throughout the weekend, which is a shame, but, he's probably, well, I guess a little bit less busy these days, but I guess he had other things he wanted to do, so it was still cool to see his panel. I also took a picture with the Pokemon starters and with Pikachu. Pokemon had quite the presence here. They had the Play Lab for the trading card game. But what I find is odd is that if you wanted to go to the Nintendo booth and experience something that wasn't Pokemon, too bad. Because despite Pokemon already having 2 whole booths, the Nintendo booth was also just Pokemon. I really don't get why Nintendo did this when they did. I get it, the TCG and the video games are 2 very different things, but, like, I really don't get it, because the second Pokemon booth was just a place where you could get the trading card game. You could pick up, like a pack of trading cards for doing something. It was literally just, like, the big booth was so you could demo the TCG if you haven't played it before, and get the special pin for it. And then the second booth right across from it was just a thin booth with inflatable Pokemon starters that you could take a picture with, and then you could also redeem your Pokemon TCG experience to get the pin. It was a little odd that they had so much of a Pokemon presence there, because also there's nothing new with Pokemon right now. There's no big game coming out. They had playable demos for Legends Arceus, which, might I remind you, came out like 2-3 years ago. And like it just felt weird that they put all these resources into putting Pokemon at PAX when you really couldn't think of something else. You couldn't at least have like a Princess Peach Showtime demo or something. I know that demo's publicly available, but it just, Pokemon's overabundance at PAX was very strange. While also walking around the expo hall, I just happened to be near the aforementioned Nintendo booth when I saw Woodhawker, aka Beanabops, just chilling in the line. I did not know he was going to be at PAX. And I did the classic double take you do when you see someone that you're a fan of in person. You're like, wait, that's them. Oh, that's actually them. So I had a nice little conversation with Wood about how much I enjoy the podcast because I listen to it all the time, and also about creative burnout. We had a very wholesome conversation about that, where he had been going through a rough patch with creative burnout. I had been going through a similar situation with the recent Twitch channel update video. You haven't seen that yet. Um, yeah, so it was nice to really talk to someone about that, and I told him that like how much I appreciate the podcast, and he was telling me that sometimes it's hard to find the motivation, because the viewer retention is really like bad for a podcast. So just to be able to express my appreciation was, he really appreciated that. So Wood, if by any chance you're seeing this, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. It was really nice. But yeah, that closes out day one of PAX East. It was just a great experience. It was unreal. Just meeting all these creators, or I guess just witnessing some of them because I didn't get to meet MatPat. But it was just a great way of getting a lay of the land and preparing myself for the rest of the week, because just from the bullet points that I'm reading off of as I'm recording this voiceover, it only gets better. All right, it is Friday. Friday morning, to be specific, which is why I look like a zombie. Yesterday was a movie, man. It was great. For the first time, I'm going to PAX for 4 days, so I gotta make sure I'm ready for the grind, as it were. Yeah, so today, or to summarize everything else that happened yesterday that I didn't get a clip of, I picked up a copy of Twilight Princess on the Wii, which, I know there's purists out there that are like, oh, GameCube was the original, the Wii version is just flipped. I don't care. I just want to pick up Twilight Princess for the collection, and also, I want to play it eventually, if I get around to it. And it was only $15, so that's pretty good. My spending has been pretty low. Besides Twilight Princess, the most expensive thing was lunch. So mac and cheese truck really came in clutch. Today, the agenda is check the Final Fantasy 16 panel, because I want to score one of those pins. You're probably thinking, you can't even play Final Fantasy 16. You don't have a PS5. True. I also want to meet Yoshi P. Would love to. Not sure if I'll be able to. And then I have a meeting today. Still don't know if I can say anything. It's for the most I could say. It's an upcoming MMO that will be on PC and console. I can't say anything else. I'm not held by contract, but I want to leave a good impression. Editor, if I'm allowed to talk about it publicly after filming this, put it on screen, what I'm covering. Yeah, I'm being invited into the press room for this, so I'm very nervous but very excited. I really wish I could say it, but I'm too scared of leaving a bad impression on the publisher. Dune Awakening was the game that I was able to review behind closed doors at PAX East this year. We were shown 30 minutes of gameplay, and it was mostly beta footage, so obviously not the final product, but I did get to see a lot of how the game plays and what players can really expect going in. Starting off the game, they showed us the character creator, which is incredibly in-depth and provides a wealth of options for every part of your body, to the point where there's around 10 different options for just customizing your nose, if that's something you really want to investigate. I don't know. If you want to play the game like that, I don't judge. I could spend hours in this character creator, personally. During the beginning of the game, you also make some incredibly important choices, like your home world and your different kinds of mentors. Your home world will change how characters talk to you, so there's somewhat of an adaptive storyline. After talking to the developers, I asked if there was a way to experience different storylines and how many characters each player will be able to make, and what they did tell me was that you will not be able to make multiple characters on the same server because it's an MMO. So you will have to make a new character on a completely different player server if you want to experience an alternate take on the story. You could also choose your mentor, as I just mentioned, which determines your skills and ability trees. Unlike the character creator, where you can only really have one character per server, you are able to switch between different ability trees and skills as you progress later in the game. You'll be able to access more of the skills that you missed out on in the early game. From different mentors, I mean. When it comes to the actual world in Dune Awakening, you get to walk around the desert just like in the films and in the books, but you also have the added element of survival. So, similar to other survival games, you do have to scrounge around for resources, but in Dune Awakening, they use an interesting adaptive shadow system. And in the early game, water is an incredibly important resource. Water is important in the Dune universe because you are traveling in the desert, so naturally, dehydration is incredibly easy to come across. And it's to the point where if you're in the sun for too long, you could experience sunstroke. So you want to conserve as much water as you can while you're exploring. And you can also find fiber around the world, but it only fills up about a third of your water meter, and it's not necessarily an unlimited resource, so make sure you're exploring wisely, and make sure you're incredibly prepared. When you're done exploring, you can also go back to your base, which, around a beacon, you're able to construct your own living quarters. You can place schematics for parts you don't have the materials for, in case you want to build a very elaborate structure or be as much of an architect as you want, and you can gradually, over time, add materials to the structure so that you can construct them. In your base, you're immune to any kind of elemental damage, so the sandstorms or the sandworms will not be able to affect you in your base, and there won't necessarily be any PvP aspect unless if you opt into it. So you don't have to worry about anyone raiding your base for all of your resources. Going back to exploration in the desert, events can happen sporadically, so naturally you'd expect a raid in an MMO to happen every few minutes or so, or you try to just go to a dungeon and that's about it. But in the world of Dune Awakening, there are dynamic events that can drastically change how you decide to go about your exploration in the world, because some of these events can result in finding loot boxes. Not necessarily the paid ones, just loot boxes of materials that maybe you're looking for to build your base, or just stuff that you need to keep the economy going in the game. So it will be in your best interest to keep an eye out for any events that do happen. Be warned though, because if you do travel into the desert for these events, not only are you competing against all the players that are trying to get their hands on these loot boxes, you're also competing against the sandworms that want to eat every single one of you. Also in the world, you will find eco labs, which function similar to dungeons. Unfortunately, they didn't really show us anything about that, but I am excited to see what those dungeons will entail and what kinds of stuff you can really find in there. Naturally, because this is a game in the Dune universe, spice is an ever-important resource. There's different effects that this substance can have. You can collect it in the desert with those machines like they do in the movies, but spice can also mutate your ability, so it can have some interesting, maybe benefits depending on the effect that it has on you, but do be careful because just like in the Dune universe, you can get addicted to spice. So it's very much a use at your own risk type of situation. As for your affiliation with the house, I made sure to ask the developers, are you more of a freelancer or can you stick to a house? Do you necessarily have to be a Harkonnen and stay on that path? But what the developers told me is that you can indeed be a freelancer if you so wish. The world is very much your very sandy oyster. So, when it comes to first impressions, Dune Awakening looks fantastic. I made sure to watch through at least the first movie so I could get an idea of what the universe was like going into the press room. Dune Awakening shows a lot of promise as a survival MMO. The base building looks really fun and in-depth, and they even talked about how you could basically be somewhat of a Dune Awakening architect if you so choose, and you could sell blueprints for said structures in the in-game market, which I think is a very interesting way of going about it. It's kind of like selling the map download for a Minecraft world, but obviously a lot more sci-fi. I like the customizability you have with your character, and I like that it has a branching storyline. I think it's going to be a very interesting game for Dune fans, and even for people like me that have very little exposure to the Dune franchise. I'm personally interested in trying this out. If you want to see me cover this game, definitely let me know in the comments down below, because I'm certainly going to be giving it a shot on my own time. If my impressions have, by chance, caught your interest in Dune Awakening, I recommend following the game as well as the developer Funcom on all social platforms so you can hear of any news related to a closed beta. Thanks again to Funcom for inviting me to the press room. I'm so glad and honored that I was even considered to be able to see the gameplay for this, and I certainly can't wait to try it. What else? That's about it, I think. Oh, there is a speedrun event happening like across the street from the convention center in like D's Keys. That's actually what it's called. It's not a D's Nuts joke. Grand Pooh Bear is hosting like a speedrun event. So I would love to meet him, and Linkus7 will be there, and he's one of my favorite speedrunners. I really enjoy watching his Zelda speedruns. So would love to meet those guys. That's about it. Otherwise, it's just a lot of playing some games, trying to network. That's what it's going to be. So I guess I'll see you when I see ya. Day 2, baby. On Friday, before I entered the expo hall, I happened to notice that what used to be a blank black square was actually the Bandai Namco booth, and nobody had any idea what they were showing off because they made no announcement prior, and their placement on the expo hall map was shadow dropped like 2 days before PAX, so no one had any idea what was happening. But it turns out they brought in a giant tank to show off Sandland, which still trying to figure out what that is. I know the art style is very distinct. It's very Akira Toriyama, rest in peace. So they were showing that off, but it's funny that they upgraded from a blank square of nothing to a whole tank on said blank square. So good for them. I got to check out the speedrun stage at PAX. I had never really visited it before, but being able to sit there, chat with the GDQ staff, but also just watching speedruns while taking a break from everything else going on in the expo hall, very nice breath of fresh air, as it were. After my break from the expo hall, I went back down and tried out a game called Rift Storm.
Okay, number of updates. I ended up not going to the Final Fantasy panel today because the more I thought about it, the more I realized if I can't even play Final Fantasy 16, why would I go there to get the pin? As cool as it would be to beat Yoshi P, I think I would rather do that when I've actually played one of the games he worked on. Because otherwise I'm just kind of taking up space for people that are actual fans. But speaking of, I scored a hat, which I know is hypocritical, like you just talked about this, but you hardly play 14. I would like to get into it. I've tried several times, I'm willing to try again. Right now, checking out Rift Storm. Yeah, it seems to be like a roguelike looter shooter. Two things I did not think would go together. Yeah, so I'm kind of just walking around trying to play some games before my meeting. So, video games.
The developers were actually from Indonesia, which I thought was cool, and they gave me a little Indonesian coffee candy, which I definitely tried. It was very good while I was waiting in line, but after playing it, definitely had a blast with that. I wishlisted it right away. I heard about it about a week or two before PAX and put it on my list of games that I wanted to try out in person. So, very cool experience. Looking forward to when that game comes out. Also, in the expo hall, I happened to run into a Moogle, which was super cute and adorable. He's a silly little guy and didn't look like the ones from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that looked like they were on cocaine. So that's nice. Oh yeah, fun fact about the speedrun stage. I was sitting in front of the Minus World crew, which was Tetrabit Gaming, Nathaniel Bandy, Simple Flips, those guys. And I got way too awkward to say hi, and in this little clip that I made at the speedrun stage, you can see that they were just sitting right behind me.
I am quickly realizing the speedrun stage is my comfort food. Yeah. Video games, but fast.
While I was adventuring throughout the expo hall, I happened to run into Friday, who is a project manager on College Esports News. Her and I were chatting beforehand and realized we were both going to PAX, so we decided to meet up. It was cool to meet people from the collegiate esports scene because I got to chat with people who were at their college's booths and just talk about esports. Very good time. And not even a few minutes later, I met ByndoGehk, who is a streamer and cosplayer. And her and I had a really nice conversation about the differences of Los Angeles and Boston, because we're both on basically opposite sides of the country. And she was telling me about how LA doesn't really have public transport at all like we do. And in general, we just had a very wholesome conversation. So really nice to meet her. After the expo hall closed, I didn't really have much else going on that night, so I decided to go to Grand Pooh Bear Speedrun Sessions, which was at a little piano bar. And thanks to Red Bull Gaming, they actually converted it into an arcade. It was super cool to be able to walk into this place and just have all these arcade machines available to play. They even had a claw machine where you could get a hat, which I ended up getting. Very nice. But the main event was watching speedruns. I got to see Grand Pooh Bear speedrun through Grand Pooh World 3, and then I also saw Linkus 7 playing Tears of the Kingdom. It was super cool. Point Crow just happened to be there. I had no idea Point Crow was going to be at PAX. When I saw Point Crow at the event, I was a little starstruck, I'll admit, because I was caught off guard by the fact that he's just standing right there, and he's a cool dude. So yeah, it was really cool to chat with him, and I also chatted with his editor, who works on his Pokemon videos. So really nice to talk to someone, also native Massachusetts person. So I salute you. On my way out, I managed to get a picture with Linkus and Grand Pooh Bear before I headed home, and this was right before Linkus started his speedrun. Linkus is one of my favorite speedrunners that I watch. I really enjoy his Legend of Zelda runs. And I also am just a fan of what Grand Pooh Bear was doing. The fact that he put on this whole event was super awesome. So, shout out to you guys. Really cool to meet you. The following days were a bit different. So, I started off on Saturday with a +1 in my party. And it was my friend, Patrick, from college. He had never been to PAX East before. And I happened to have a 4-day pass. But prior, I had a Saturday and Sunday badge. But after winning a 4-day pass from Twitter, I just decided, hey, you want to go with me to PAX? And he was ecstatic. So I wanted to make sure that he got the most out of his first ever PAX East. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that was definitely the case.
Hello, gamers. It is Saturday morning. I actually got good sleep last night, for once. Last night was a fucking movie. Meeting speedrunners was pretty cool. I got to meet a lot of people yesterday. I met some, streamers, some people from collegiate esports. So it was just, kind of the Avengers Endgame of my PAX adventure. Where, everyone from every corner of my internet life just decided to show up on the same day. So now, today, I'm gonna do this shit all again, I guess. Except I have friend now. I have a that. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Video games.
So I was just walking around the expo hall and kind of showing him everything, and he was just absolutely into everything. Like, we went around to all the booths with kind of like a refreshed sense of excitement because, I was already familiar with the culture of PAX, but this was all the first time for him. Really awesome experience. While also walking around the booths, I happened to run into Nintendo Fangirl at the Indie Creates booth. So, for those who are unaware, last year I actually won a 4-day pass from Twitter, this time from Nintendo Fangirl. So, to be able to see her again and catch up with her was really nice. We were just talking games, talking Nintendo. She was telling me that she doesn't really follow the Switch 2 rumors, which honestly, that's pretty based, because I like to dig into the trenches of rumors and leaks. So to talk to her, kind of get just the genuine Nintendo excitement, and her just say, it'll come out when it comes out. It was really fun to talk to her about that. But she also recognized me, actually. she said that I looked familiar when I introduced myself. So it's cool that even I'm starting to be recognizable to people. While checking out some game demos, I tried out a demo for this game called Urbo, a city building puzzle game where you merge buildings together to make a bustling metropolis. It was a very fun little puzzle game. It kind of felt like a match 3 in a way, but it wasn't like your typical match 3, like your Candy Crushes or whatever. It just felt like a relaxing puzzle game that I could just sit down and enjoy. And apparently the game came out last year, so link will be in the description down below if you want to give it a try for yourself. Shout outs to Patrick for getting this footage for me. I would not have been able to record gameplay footage otherwise. While we were waiting in line for a panel, I found out that a YouTuber that I follow was doing a meet and greet in the lobby. So I left my backpack with my friend in the panel line and I bolted it to the main lobby. Or I guess walked, because PAX staff told me I could not run. I met the hype legend himself, HMK. For those who don't know, HMK is one of my core inspirations for my reaction content, because him and Fidel Games Cage, those are like my two big inspirations for being my authentic self and being really excited for things without worrying what other people think of me. They really are inspirational. And it was really nice to be able to meet HMK in person and tell him that. He was very happy to hear that. So it was awesome to meet one of my inspirations. Speaking of inspirations, I also met a Let's Player that I had been following for years. Back when I first came across the Runaway Guys, which was Proton John, Nintendo Capri Sun, Chugga Conroy, back in middle school, I also got word of Josh Jepson, who is also a Let's Player, and, you know, he does his own thing as well. I somehow ran into him on the way back from meeting HMK, and I also ran into ForestMinish, who was walking around with him. She likes to do Zelda content, so it was really cool to meet her as well. It was just amazing to be able to meet them in person and tell them how much I enjoy their content, and with Josh, how I have been following him for such a long time, and I think that he's just really cool. It was a very wholesome experience. Sunday, the last day of PAX. It was a little bittersweet because it felt like the weekend was a whirlwind, but we wasted no time with having some fun. It is Sunday, which means it is the final day of PAX. Day 4 for me, day 2 for this homeless guy I found. I did not film, like, at all yesterday because we were too busy getting lost in the world of gaming. Which is my fancy way of saying we were playing too many game demos and having too much fun that I forgot to record. But I met YouTubers and streamers. They're pretty neat. Played some really fun games. I'll probably have a voiceover talking about what I tried out so far. It's the last day, so we've got a couple panels we want to go to. And then, hopefully just trying a couple more demos, depending on what the lines look like. It's Sunday, so it's going to be a pretty relaxed day, population-wise. Yeah, I think that's about it. So we'll see you when we see you. Me and my friend ended up going to a Nintendo DS panel to start off the day, where the audience had to help build a list of 15 must-have games for any Nintendo DS collection. But the catch is that you had 15 seconds to pitch your game and why it should be on the list. And you also had to pitch the game and why it should replace a different one on the list. So you kind of had to compete with, this game deserves to be in a spot on the list against this one because insert reason here. So I went and pitched Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, which had the entire crowd applauding. So I figured it would be a mainstay up there. Not too long after that, they decided to take it down in favor of Mario Kart DS because, admittedly, the guy at the panel did give a very convincing pitch that, you know, you had your local multiplayer, you could entertain many people with just one cartridge because of DS download play. It was a little sad to see the game that I nominated get taken down, but the pitch was way too good. I can't blame them.
All right. just got out of the Nintendo DS panel. There were some kind of dog shit takes out there, not gonna lie. Someone tried claiming that they should take Pokemon Black and White 2 off the list of like must-have DS games in favor of Heart Gold Soul Silver, saying that Black and White 2 had a rehashed Pokedex. My brother in Christ, Heart Gold Soul Silver also have a rehashed Pokedex, and they somehow let that through. Like, I know it's a panel, it's not supposed to be taken seriously, but it's like bruh. And then I suggested Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, and it was removed in favor of Mario Kart, which I can't get too mad at, but I'm going to anyway. But yeah, it is a beautiful fucking day out here. The weather's just beautiful out here. I'm getting some lunch, and then we're gonna hang around the expo hall a little bit. We're gonna try to play some heckin' video games. Let's do it.
During my last foray into the expo hall, I tried a demo for a game called Card and Seal. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, which was a turn-based deck-building game inspired by Mega Man Battle Network, which had some pretty funny dialogue. It was kind of a little meta at times, but I greatly enjoyed the gameplay. Also, shouts to Patrick again for getting gameplay of me playing it. Very fun time. I never got to try Battle Network. That series of Mega Man games always looked interesting to me, so I'm definitely gonna have to pick this one up when it comes out in May. And then as for the last game I got to give a try, I played a demo for Terra Storm, a survival city builder game where you build settlements in towers with city-sized floors and maintain production and storage of the resource Viribus. It's a cool, like, post-apocalyptic city-building game where you're kind of rebuilding a civilization inside of a giant tower. Very interesting project. And it was made by, as far as I could tell, one person, or at least a very small team from Poland, because there was a whole, like, giant booth of games from Poland, which had all these different projects by developers from the country of Poland, all showing off their own projects. It was really cool. So, glad I got to give that a try. I wishlisted that after playing. They're aiming for a 2025 release, I believe. I could be wrong. Editor put it on screen if I'm wrong about that. But that's about it. After that, we went to another panel. I'm blanking on which one I went to after that. My brain is still, like, recovering from PAX weekend, but PAX East was definitely a very great moment this year. Both because I got to go all 4 days for the very first time, so I got to really experience the fatigue of going to a gaming convention for 4 days in a row. But also, it was very wholesome that I got to show my friend what PAX East was like and bringing more people into the PAX culture. Meeting all the content creators that I really liked was a great experience, and in general, the games I played were also really fun. So I can't wait for the next PAX East, as I probably do every year. But this one just felt extra special to me, and it was super awesome. I think what also made this PAX really special was I went to a panel called PAX 10123, hosted by the PAX Community Discord. I was going to this because I am part of the community, but what was really special was they had a whole slide about niche community projects that some of us work on, and they mentioned the swag map, and they were saying, like, oh, it was made by this guy named Mike or something. And after saying that, keep in mind they had no idea I was sitting in the front row. I said that, hey, I worked on that, and the entire room of like 100 people applauded me, and that just was a highlight for me. That was incredibly special that so many people appreciated the swag map project that I do to the point where I'm getting applauded in person. It was unreal. So I want to thank PAX Community Discord for always being so supportive. It really made my weekend very special. But that's roughly all the adventures I ran into while I was at PAX East. If you have any questions about what it was like there, or if you want to know what Woodhawker beat 'em up smelled like, I can answer most of those questions in the comments down below. Stay vibing and thriving, everyone. I will see you in the next one.